Welcome back, everyone. I'm Lisa, and today we've got 4 Halloween DIYs. I had so many good Halloween DIY ideas, I just had to share one more video with you. DIY number 1 is going to be a kitty mummy. And to start this DIY, we're just going to use one of the little tinsel cats from Dollar Tree, some polyfill, and I also took a white pillowcase and cut it into strips. The little cat had a witch hat on it, so I just took some wire cutters and cut that off. Then I took some scissors and I just removed the eyes and the nose and the whiskers. The tail was also connected to the body, so I took my wire cutters and I just cut up that little piece of plastic off so the leg would be separate, because we're going to be wrapping our little cat to turn him into a mummy. I wanted the little cat to have a little more fullness to it, so I just took some polyfill and I laid it on the cat. I'm actually using the back of the cat where it kind of dips in a little bit, and I'm going to lay the polyfill in there, and then I'm going to wrap it in duct tape. I'm going to start with the tail. I'm going to work my way up the body and then down the leg, and then at the end I'll do the head. And as you watch me put the polyfill and the duct tape on, some places I'm taking some extra polyfill and I'm stuffing it down in there just to make it as full as I want it. As I got up by the neck, you can see I ran out of duct tape, so I just used some painter's tape. You can use any kind of tape. It really doesn't matter, just as long as it's covered. Now that we have our little cat completely covered and stuffed with the polyfill, we're going to work on putting the strips of fabric. I just made the little slits and then I ripped the strips to give them more of a rough edge. And I'm just going to start down here on the foot. I'm just going to hot glue the beginning and run some glue up the leg, and then I'm just going to wrap my strips of fabric around the leg. And once I get the leg done, I'm just going to start working from the bottom up on his body, and I'm just going to hot glue and wrap, and I'm going to continue doing that until the body all the way up to the neck is completely covered. And now I'm going to work on the tail, and I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm going to take the strips of fabric and hot glue them and just wrap all the way up the tail. And once I get his tail done, I'm going to go back to the bottom of the cat, and there's these little edges that need folded in. I just folded down the one side, put hot glue, and then folded up the other side and hot glued that into place. And now I'm going to work on the rest of the neck and the head. When I wrapped the head, the bottom part of the head was pretty easy, but once I got up to where the eyes were going to be, I wanted 2 strips of fabric to be straight across to where the eyes are going to be, so I could fit the eyes halfway down into the fabric. The next thing I did was give the mommy a coat of paint. The pillowcase I used was a little too white for me, so I just gave it a coat of paint. And then I decided to add some lace to the mummy. You can see here I just laid it on the front and then folded it and ran it up the back. And then I just took the piece that was around her neck and folded it down twice to make it look like the collar of a dress. And then I just hot glued that in place around her neck, and then I flipped it over, and on the back I did the same thing. I folded it down twice and bring it around, and then I just hot glued it into place. I love how the lace turned out on there. I think it's so cute. Next, I'm going to work on her eyes. I had these little green eyes that I got from Hobby Lobby. They were a little small, I thought, for her head. So I took some green felt, and the eyes that was original on the cat, I took those little plastic pieces, traced around them, cut them out of green felt, and then I'm gonna hot glue the eyes that I got from Hobby Lobby on top of the felt, and it's gonna make the eyes look a little bigger. And once I get the eyes glued onto the green felt, I'm going to slide it down into the little opening that I was talking about earlier, where we had to put the pieces of fabric straight across. I'm going to put the eyes down in there about halfway, and I'm going to hot glue them into place. Once I got the eyes glued into place, I'm going to hot glue the fabric on each side of the eyes and between the eyes so that the fabric kind of wraps around the eyes, and I think it makes it look a little more real. Now I'm going to take the nose and the whiskers that I took off earlier. I'm going to paint them white. I'm going to distress them, and then I'm going to hot glue them back onto her face. I had these little stickers that I got from Dollar Tree. They look like little flowers. I'm just going to take one of those, and I'm going to hot glue it right in the middle of where her collar would be. Now I'm going to take one of these little white spiders. I'm going to add it to her tail. I just painted it black and glued it into place. Now I'm just going to take a distressing pad. I'm just going to rub it all over the edges of her leg and her tail and her face. Now I'm just going to work on the little base that she's going to be setting on. I have two of the boxes from Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to hot glue those together, and then I'm going to give them a coat of walnut stain. And to help her stand on the base, I'm just going to attach a paint stick to the back of the box, and then I'm going to hot glue her into place. I just love anything that lights up, so now I'm going to add some fairy lights. Every little cat has to have a mouse, so now I'm going to work on making a mouse for the base. I'm going to use some brown felt to make the mouse. I'm just going to cut out a teardrop shape. I'm going to hot glue all the edges except for the very back side, and then I'm going to stuff it with fiberfill. Now I'm just going to hot glue the opening and leave enough space for the tail. And to make the tail, I just used some of this white string. I just stuck the end in the opening, hot glued it into place, cut it off to what length I wanted, and then I took a little hot glue on the end of the tail and just kind of twisted it so it wouldn't fray. Now I'm going to add some eyes to the little mouse, and I just have these little gems that I got at Hobby Lobby, and I'm just going to glue one on each side. And to make his nose, I'm just going to take a black marker and I'm just going to color in on each side, the top and the bottom, to form a nose. Now I'm just going to work on embellishing the front of the base. I just took some Spanish moss and some of the bones. I adjusted them to the way I wanted them, and then I just hot glued everything into place. And once I got everything glued into place, then I just hot glued on the little mouse. Once I got the little mouse glued into place, I realized I forgot his ears. So I just took some of the same brown felt that I made the mouse out of. I cut some circles out. Once I got them cut out, I took a little dot of glue on one end, squeezed it together to form an ear. And I just did that with both sides. Once the hot glue set, I just glued them on each side of his head. Now I'm going to take some cheesecloth and cut it into strips. I'm going to add some to the tail, the leg, and the head to give it a little more of a spooky vibe. I'm glad that I did this part after I put the fairy lights on, because with this over the fairy lights, I really like how it made it look. And since our little mummy is a girl, I'm going to add her some eyelashes. And I just hot glued them right above her eyes. I think she is just the cutest. You have to let me know what you think in the comments below. Here she is, all done and setting on our buffet. DIY number 2 is going to be a skeleton head and a cloche. I started this DIY with a cloche from Dollar Tree, one of the little pumpkins, a little wood handle, one of the plastic bowls from Dollar Tree, and I just started by painting the pumpkin white and gluing the little wood handle onto the bottom of the pumpkin, and then I'm going to glue that onto the base of the cloche. Now I'm just going to glue the base of the cloche onto the bottom of the bowl. Now I'm going to add some hot glue to the edge of the base, and I'm just going to let it drip down the sides, and I'm going to do that all the way around. And to make it look like one piece, I'm going to give it a coat of black chalk paint. Now we're going to work on the pumpkin to make it look like a skull. I'm going to take and cut a circle out of cheesecloth, and then I'm going to take a mixture of glue and water, and I'm going to put the circle in there until it's saturated, and then I'm going to drape it over top of the pumpkin. I let the cheesecloth dry for just a little bit, maybe an hour. It was still kind of soft, but I went ahead and added a coat of white chalk paint. And now you just need to let it completely dry. Now I'm going to work on the faux glass part of the cloche. I'm just going to take some glitter glaze and a sea sponge, and I'm going to dab it all over the top and the bottom. This glaze dries clear and it just has a little bit of a sparkle to it. Now that the first layer of the glaze dried, I'm going to go back in with some more of the glaze. I'm going to add a tiny bit of black just to kind of make the cloche look old and dirty. And here's what the cloche looked like once it dried. It kind of has a clear but kind of a dirty old age look. Now I'm going to take some of that same glaze and black, and I'm just going to dab it all over these butterflies that I'm going to be gluing to the top of the skull. I also had one of these little wood knobs that I wanted to put on top of the cloche to make it look like a handle. I just painted it with black chalk paint and then hot glued it on top. Now that the cheesecloth is dry, I'm just going to take a black colored pencil and draw out eyes and a nose on the skull. Once I got my face drawn out, I'm just going to take this fine paint marker and I'm just going to outline the eyes and the nose and fill them in. I did have a little struggle with making his face, but since I painted the cheesecloth white, anything that I didn't like, I just went back over it with the white paint and then fixed it with the black paint marker. And next I just took the butterflies and glued them to the top of his head. And then I took a small grapevine wreath. I cut the part off that held it together and kind of just let it come loose a little bit, big enough to slide over the head and slide down onto the base of the cloche. And of course, I needed to add some fairy lights. I just wrapped them around the grapevine wreath and then I glued the battery pack up underneath the bottom. This one was a little on the spooky side, but I just love how it turned out. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you like this spooky little skeleton head? DIY number 3 is an exploding canvas and it has a little twist to it. I'm going to start this DIY with some Halloween napkins, a canvas panel, and a framed canvas, and some scrapbook paper and some Mod Podge. I started with the canvas panel and I'm just going to give it a layer of Mod Podge. I cut one of these napkins out and took off the back layers, and I'm just going to Mod Podge it onto the canvas. I didn't paint the canvas before I put the napkin on because it was so see-through. I didn't want it to make it look darker. So I'm going to paint the edges all around the napkin, and it kind of gives it a rough, kind of aged look. And next I just dried the paint with my blow dryer. And then I took the frame canvas and I'm going to line the back of it with this dark wood scrapbooking paper. I just cut it to size and then I Mod Podged it into place. Now I'm going to start working on the other side of the canvas. I'm going to use a light colored wood scrapbooking paper. I'm going to cut it to size and I'm going to set that aside because this time I'm going to paint the edges first and then attach the scrapbooking paper. And the reason that I'm going to paint the edges first is I'm going to take the scrapbooking paper that I cut out and I'm just going to tear all the edges of the paper just to make it look a little more rough and aged. Once I'm finished with the edges, I'm going to take my paintbrush that still has some of the black paint on it and I'm just going to run it all along the edges on all sides of the scrapbooking paper, and this is going to really give it an aged, distressed look. I made sure that the paint that I painted on the edges of the canvas was dry, and then I applied some Mod Podge, and then I just put the scrapbooking paper into place. And once I made sure everything was dry, I'm just going to use my X-Acto knife to cut lines through the canvas. And you can see here, I'm just cutting in different directions to make almost like a star shape. And then after I get it all cut, I'm going to take my paintbrush with the black paint on it again, and I'm just going to distress those edges. And next I'm just going to take each little piece that I cut, I'm going to curl it back, and then I'm going to hot glue them into place. And here is where the little twist is. I'm going to take the back of the panel canvas, I'm going to paint it black. I have another napkin that has a little ghost on it with little bats. I'm going to cut that out, I'm going to separate it, get all the extra layers off, and then I'm going to Mod Podge that to the center of the back of the canvas. Next, I'm going to be taking this little sign that had chicken wire in it. It had a cow on it. I took the cow off, and I'm just going to hot glue that into place over top of the ghost. And here you can see what they both look like. First, I'm going to show you the skeleton side, and then I'm going to flip it over, and then you can see the ghost. And then to attach it, and where I can remove it and flip it from one side or the other when I want to, I'm just going to use these little Velcro stickers. I did have to hot glue them into place to make sure they stayed. If you made it this far in the video, leave me a pumpkin emoji in the comments below. I'm just going to add a hanger on the back of the picture. It was one that was on the chicken wire sign. I'm just going to reuse it. I'm going to hot glue it and then put pieces of felt over the hot glue, and this is going to help it hold into place. And next I'm going to add a little skeleton to the top part of the picture. I'm just going to bend his knees. I'm going to hot glue them so he stays in a setting position. And then I'm just going to set him on one of the little curled pieces on the right side of the canvas, and I'm just going to hot glue him into place. Next, I'm just going to add some fairy lights on the inside of the back of the canvas. I'm going to just hot glue them all the way around the edges and then hot glue the battery pack into place. And then I can just add my picture back in, and it gives it a spooky, eerie glow. And here it is, all finished. If I had to pick, I would say this is my favorite. Let me know what you think in the comments below. DIY number 4 is a spooky tree. To start this DIY, you're going to need one of the little Halloween trees from Dollar Tree. This DIY is a little messy and time consuming, but I think it turned out so cool. The first thing we're going to do is trim the branches as much as we can with scissors. Next, we're going to start with the branches. We're going to take 2 at a time. We're going to twist them together, but we're not going to twist them all the way to the end. We're going to leave about a couple inches that's not twisted. On some of the branches, I would take 2 of them, twist them like I did the first one, but then I would take another branch, add it in, twist it around that, and then it would look like it had 3 branches coming out on the end of it. And you're just going to keep doing this all the way up each side of the tree until you get to the very top. And you can see here, once you get done, it looks more like a maple tree than it does a pine tree. Now we need to cover the tree to make it look more like bark. I did this with brown lunch bags. I took 1 lunch bag, I wrinkled it up, I folded it over until the top met the bottom, and then I squeezed it together and I fit it over the bottom of the tree to make it look like a trunk. Next, I took another lunch bag and I cut it in half, and now I'm just going to fit it up one side of the tree, and you can see here that I'm just cutting slits where the branches are, and then I'm just going to fit it around the empty spots in between the branches. And once I get it fitted around the middle parts of the tree, I'm just going to start hot gluing it in place around the tree to make it more like the center of the tree. And I just did that until I got all the way to the top. Now we're going to work on the branches. You can see here I had to call in some extra help for this job. His name's Mo, and he is definitely a good helper. I'm going to start by taking more of the paper bags. I'm going to cut them into strips. Once I get them all cut into strips, I'm going to just scrunch them up, make them all wrinkled. And then I'm just going to start on the inside of the branches. I'm going to hot glue, and I'm just going to wrap them around the branches until they're completely covered. This part is a little time consuming, but I think it really turns out neat. On some of the shorter branches, if I have some extra paper, I'll just keep wrapping, and it kind of extends it out and makes it look a little longer. And I just continue wrapping all the branches until I have everything covered. Now I'm going to work on the trunk of the tree. This is the bag that I had from earlier. I'm just checking it for size. I ended up cutting part of it off, and then I'm just kind of going to overlap it. I'm going to hot glue it, overlap it a little bit, and then put it back on. And then I'm just going to squeeze it and shape it to make it look like a trunk. And then I'm just going to glue it into place all the way around the tree. I did end up taking one of the strips, and where the trunk went into the tree, I took and I hot glued a piece around the branches and down and around, kind of to make it look like all one piece. Now I'm going to take a wood round and I'm going to open that part up on the bottom so you can see the black plastic piece, and then I'm just going to hot glue that onto one of the wood rounds so it will stand up on its own. Next, I'm going to take some antique wax and I'm going to give the whole tree a coat. I'm not worried about covering it completely because I want a little bit of the paper bag color to come through. And to make it look a little more spooky, next I'm going to go in with some black chalk paint and I'm just going to give it a thick coat of distressing all over the tree. Now we're going to add a little spooky to the tree. We're going to take one of the skeletons from Dollar Tree. We're going to take and just cut him all apart. We're going to take all the pieces, attach twine to them, and then we're going to hang all the little pieces to different branches on the tree. Next, we're going to make little ghosts for the tree. I'm going to use the little eggs from Dollar Tree. I'm going to paint the eggs white, and then I'm going to poke a hole in the end, attach twine to it with hot glue, and then I'm going to take a piece of cheesecloth that's cut into a square. I'm going to feed the twine up in the center of the cheesecloth, and then the cheesecloth is going to drape down over the egg and it's going to look like a ghost. And to finish the ghost, I just took a black marker and made eyes. Now I'm just going to attach the ghost to the tree with hot glue. I put one on one side, one on the other. Since I was filming from the top, I know it's a little hard to see. So I have a clip coming up that's going to give you a view from the side so you can see what I did. And now I'm just going to show you how I am attaching the bones to each of the branches on the tree. I have a little clip coming up showing what it looks like from the side since I was filming from the top. And here is what it looked like. I'm going to be adding another skeleton to the bottom of the tree. I want him to sit and lean against a tree, so I'm just bending his arms and his knees, and I'm just putting hot glue so they stay bent, and he is in a setting position. To create a little base for everything to set on, I'm going to use one of the little palettes from Dollar Tree. I just distressed it with some black paint. I glued the tree to one side of the palette, and then I took some little foam pumpkins and I glued them in front of the tree, stacked on top of each other, and then I glued the skeleton to lean against the tree. And since I filmed from the top and it's a little hard to see, I have a clip coming up showing you what it looks like. And to finish up this DIY, I'm just adding some fairy lights. I just love how this spooky tree turned out. Let me know what you think in the comments below. This is going to be my last Halloween video of the year. If you had a favorite, let me know in the comments below. And once again, thanks for watching. And don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. It really does help my channel grow.